if I told you that your gut instinct could save your life? That quiet nudge in your spirit, that uneasy feeling in your chest, or the sudden urge to step back isn't paranoia, but protection? Now imagine for a moment that your body is a finely tuned instrument, constantly receiving signals. And what if you could learn to interpret those signals to use them as a shield? There's actually scientific research conducted by the Department of Defense on the sixth sense, and they have found compelling evidence that it works in the fields. Now, some military personnel have been able to detect and avoid IEDs, improvised explosive devices, without any logical explanation. Just a feeling. Now, when asked how they knew which path not to take, many simply said, "I had a feeling." Now, even if you can't articulate it, even if you don't fully understand it, you feel it. Trust it, follow it, your survival might just depend on it. Hello everybody, welcome, and I'm so glad you're here with me today. I'm Olivia Bassi, and I'm education consultant, researcher, and now host of Empowerment Junction podcast. My mission on this podcast is to empower you to receive and to recognize that you really can become the hero of your own life. You are powerful beyond measure. And the more you trust yourself, the more unstoppable you become. So welcome to today's episode. But before we get started, I just want to take a moment to reflect on our last episodes, where we talked about protecting our energy and recognizing energy vampires. Now, that episode was such a hit. Thank you so much to those who tuned in. I really hope you found why you tuned into that episode. If you haven't watched it, it's on YouTube or listen to it on your favorite podcast platform. I encourage you to check it out. You won't want to miss it because it links very well with today's episode. Also, a huge thank you to everyone supporting this podcast. If you're new here, welcome. We are growing and I truly appreciate each and every one of you. If you haven't already subscribed, please follow me on Spotify. It helps us reach more people and build this incredible community together. And as we've stepped into a new month, I want to wish a very happy birthday to all those born in March. March is the month of awakening, a time to shed the remnants of winter and embrace that new energy of new beginnings.
I still wonder how, you always make it right. Maybe it's our chance.
Now, before we start, my question to you: have you ever had an unsettling feeling that you are being watched, only to dismiss it as paranoia? Or met someone for the first time and instinctively felt uncomfortable around them, even though you had no logical reason to? Intuition, gut feelings, inner knowing, we are all taught as children to trust them, yet as adults, we often ignore them, afraid of looking irrational or overreacting. But today, I want to challenge that. Because ignoring your instincts could cost you more than just discomfort. In some cases, it's the difference between safety and danger, success and sabotage, or even life and death. So how do we distinguish between paranoia and real danger? How do we recognize when someone is manipulating us, taking advantage of us, or outright lying to us? Now, the answer to this question impacts every area of our lives, from relationships to businesses to personal safety. In some cases, it's a matter of life or death. Today, I want us to dive deep into boundaries, reading people, and how to recognize manipulative behavior before it's too late. Welcome back to Empowerment Junction. Today, we're diving into a vital topic of boundaries. And to truly illustrate their importance, I want to start with a story. A story of a teenage girl in Utah, US in 1974. A story that powerfully demonstrates the strength of inner instinct. Now picture a typical evening in 1974. A young woman, let's call her Carol, was simply running errands, shopping in a local mall. It was an ordinary moment, a routine task. She had no way of knowing that her life was about to take a terrifying turn. The mall was a place of light and activity, a place where she felt safe. That feeling of safety was about to be shattered. As she left the store, a man approached her. He appeared to be an authority figure, someone to be trusted. He told her there was a problem with her car. Something felt wrong, subtly but undeniably wrong. Her gut started to scream at her. Now, this is where our topic of boundaries begin. When someone violates your sense of safety, even in small ways, it's essential to recognize it. That feeling of unease is your internal boundary being tested. The man's words, his presence, they were pushing against Carol's sense of what was right. Now we see this in everyday life too. A manipulator might use the social status, job title, or even feigned emotional vulnerability to control you. They test your boundaries, looking for weaknesses. They want to see how far they can push before you say no. So here's how to spot the red flags. Let's continue with Carol's story. Now Carol, as was approached by this man who claimed to be a police officer, who used his persona to lure her. Even though it seemed somewhat like a normal encounter, her instincts started to pick up the subtle discrepancy. Now this is where trusting your gut is vital. Even if you can't pinpoint exactly what's wrong, that feeling of unease is a powerful signal. Carol felt it. And what we can learn from her is to pay attention to those red flags. Inconsistency, and the red flags present themselves such as this: inconsistencies in their story, sudden changes in demeanor, an overwhelming feeling of being pressured, the feeling that you're being rushed and not given time to think. Now, obviously, for those who already know this story, as I carry on, Carol ended up in the man's car because the man said he was a police officer. Now, as she got in the car, her instincts kicked in. She resisted, she fought back because the police officer suddenly handcuffed her. But Carol refused to be a passive victim. And this demonstrates the power of trusting your guts. It gives you the strength to act even when you're terrified. She beat him and she jumped from the moving car. Her body was telling her that she was in danger and she listened. She set a very strong physical boundary. Now, this is to say and to demonstrate that manipulators thrive on your compliance. They want you to doubt yourself, to ignore your instincts. Carol's story is a testament to the fact that those instincts are often right. Now, to bring it fast forward to where we are and who this person is, Carol Daronch's attacker was none other than the serial killer Ted Bundy. He was a master manipulator, using deception and charm to prey on his victims. Carol's survival is a powerful example of the strength of intuition and the importance of setting boundaries. Her ability to trust her gut and physically defend herself saved her life. Now, this story is a stark reminder that manipulation can take many forms and that it's crucial to be aware of the tactics used by those who seek to control us. Your instincts are a powerful tool. Use them. Set strong boundaries and remember you have the right to feel safe. Now, take a moment to consider what would you have done if you were Carol? It's a difficult question, right? But it forces us to confront our own vulnerability and our capacity for resilience. And beyond physical safety, what other areas of our instincts should we be paying attention to? I personally believe that spiritual, emotional, and psychological safety are crucial in today's world. We are bombarded with manipulation techniques, both subtle and overt. And whilst Carol's experience was in 1974, long before the internet and AI, we must be vigilant in all areas of our lives. Now, my next story, I want to personally demonstrate how I have personally experiences with spiritual manipulation. And I want to share some of these experiences with you next because it is just as damaging as any other form of manipulation. And the reason why I'm sharing it is we need to be aware that we are all vulnerable and that our instincts are there to protect us. So, listening to Carol's story, you might be thinking, could that happen to me? And the answer is, unfortunately, yes. Now, I want to share my own experience with spiritual exploitation in the workplace. It's something that at first I didn't even understand. The energy was wrong. My intuition was screaming, but I kept on questioning myself. But eventually I saw the truth. Manipulation, power plays, attempts to steal my destiny. And I know you might be thinking, how? How can that happen? Well, that is why I have shared the full story on YouTube so you can see the patterns. And this is why I want to talk about boundaries, about recognizing those red flags. Now, for those who want to understand more, I encourage you that the stories on YouTube, but I also attach it on today's episode. So I encourage you to check it out, please. But here's why this connects so deeply to today's conversation. Because being empowered means we are not victims. We are powerful. Carol trusted her gut and escaped. I learned from my experience and reclaimed my power. And so you can too. This isn't just about avoiding bad situations. It's about building a life where you are in control. It's about setting boundaries that scream, you will not violate my space. So, let's talk about how to do just that. I want to start by emphasizing the importance of boundaries because that's really at the heart of today's conversation. Because as we've just seen with Carol's story and a little bit of my own experiences, when boundaries are weak or non-existent, things can go terribly wrong. It's about asserting your power and commanding respect, starting with the lines you draw around your life. We must take responsibility of our own lives, regardless of what happens to us, we have control over our choices, our reactions, and ultimately our destinies. Now, the way we allow others to treat us is a direct reflection of the boundaries we set or fail to set. And that's not just theory. It's a practical skill we need in our everyday lives. So, let's explore this through an iconic movie that perfectly illustrates what happens when boundaries are ignored. And this movie is called Single White Female. Some of you, perhaps my age maybe, would have already seen this. This movie, the reason why I'm using is to illustrate the danger of weak boundaries. So if you're unfamiliar with Single White Female, it's a psychological thriller about a woman named Heidi who slowly infiltrates and takes over her roommate Ali's life, adopting her appearance, mimicking her behavior, and ultimately attempting to replace her. It's not just a movie, it's a cautionary tale. This is more than just obsession. It's what we call destiny swapping. Something I know from a personal experience can happen even in the most unexpected places, like the workplace. So, let's unpack what destiny swapping is. Destiny swapping occurs when someone, often lacking a strong sense of self, tries to take over another person's life, success, or identity instead of forging their own. This isn't just imitation, it's an attempt at displacement. Now, when someone cannot build their own sense of purpose, they may try to live through another person's achievements, relationships, or personality. In short, they want your life. Now, Heidi, in Single White Female, starts by admiring, but quickly shifts into a pattern of envy, resentment, and sabotage, culminating in an attempt to take over her life entirely. And this isn't just a fictional scenario. These are real patterns of behavior. And this brings us to an important psychological concept, the stages of envy, as outlined by Robert Greene in The Human Laws of Nature. And it's important here that you understand these 5 stages, because Robert Greene, and really I encourage you to read that book, by the way. It's very useful in many ways. Very useful. Robert Greene describes envy as a process that moves through 5 key stages. The first stage is admiration. That envious person starts by genuinely admiring someone. Yes. And I'm saying this so you can start identifying around your social circles. Second one, comparison. They begin measuring their own life against the others and feel insecure. Third one, resentment. They start questioning why that person has what they don't. And this naturally leads to sabotage. Subtle or over attempts to undermine the person emerge. Backhanded compliments, idea theft, manipulation. And obviously, 5th stage is destruction. In the extreme cases, they try to replace or ruin the person they once admired. Now, this cycle plays out in real life more often than we realize. And as we've seen it, it can happen in any setting. Recognizing these signs early is critical to protecting yourself from people who cross boundaries out of envy and insecurity. Because remember, knowledge is power, and awareness is your first defense or your first line of defense. You are the architect of your own reality. And here's how you can take back control, and this is very important. As we've seen from Carol's case, the first place, listen to your intuition. Your gut is your first line of defense. Honor it. And I'm saying when a guy, so as an example, you could be walking or you've just met somebody, but for some reason, your heart is pumping or you just feel uneasy. That sudden no, it's your body's alarm system. Honor it. Don't silence it. Amplify it. Stop and listen. Turn around if you have to. Look that person in the face if you have to. Honor it. Second place, establish firm boundaries. Communicate clearly what is and isn't acceptable. And I mean crystal clear. Don't leave room for ambiguity. No, don't apologize for your needs. Your boundaries are non-negotiable, just as your worth. They're non-negotiable. Third, way to take back control, completely detach from toxic energy. If someone is draining you, limit their access to you. And I've already told you this can happen in various forms, particularly now with social media. There are some circles, the minute you enter into that circle, you'll feel your energy drained. This is how it starts. These are subtle signs that something's amiss. This is how the energy swapping sometimes happens because there's energy vampires there. Not just physically, but emotionally. Unfollow, mute, create distance. You are not obliged to carry someone else's negativity. No, you're not obliged to. Next one, trust your own path. No one can take what's divinely meant for you. Remember that. No one. Your journey is unique. Your purpose is yours. No one can steal that. Focus on your own lane and let your light, your brilliance shine. And with that, I like to say, if this episode resonated with you, if you've ever felt that gut feeling, that sense that something's off, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let's continue to build a community of empowered individuals who refuse to be manipulated or controlled. Let's create a ripple effect of self-respect and strength. And don't forget, if you want to hear my full testimony on spiritual exploitation and how I overcame it, you can find it on YouTube. The link is in the show notes below, and I share it not to dwell on the past, but to empower you in your present. Remember, your destiny is not up for grabs. It's yours to write, yours to claim it, yours to live it. So go out there and own it. This week, I challenge you to identify one boundary you need to set. Just one. Write it down. Feel free to send it to me if you want to, for those who share whatever's going on. Practice saying no. Practice saying no. Practice many scenarios and commit to enforcing it. You have the power to create the life you deserve. Don't wait for permission. Give it to yourself. And with that, this is Olivia Bassey, and you've been listening to Empowerment Junction podcast. Now go out there and take control. Remember, your destiny is not up for grabs. It's yours to write, yours to claim it, yours to live it.